Picture this. You're watching a highly anticipated World Cup match, the absolute pinnacle of global sports. Now imagine the goalkeeper picking up the ball and just standing there for a grand total of 6 excruciating minutes over the course of the game. I mean, it sounds completely mind-boggling today, right? But in the 1990 World Cup match between Ireland and Egypt, that is exactly what happened. Ireland's Packy Bonner and his Egyptian counterpart basically held the ball hostage just to waste time. It was a singular, agonizing spectacle. But as we're going to see today, it was also the absolute breaking point that forced the beautiful game to change forever.
Welcome to The Explainer. I am so incredibly excited to take you through today's topic. So let's dive right in. We are looking at the massive butterfly effect of a single, seemingly simple rule change in 1992 that completely, fundamentally transformed football. It literally took a sport that was rapidly devolving into a slow, time-wasting slog and injected it with the high-speed, tactical brilliance we're all glued to today. If you've ever found yourself wondering why modern football is so incredibly fast and pressing-oriented, well, the answer lies in the story we're about to explore.
All right, Section 1, the game that broke football. To really get this, we need to set the scene by traveling back to the late 1980s and early 1990s.
2.21. That was the average number of goals scored per game during the 1990 World Cup in Italy. To put that into perspective, it remains a record low for the tournament to this very day. And why does this matter? Well, teams had figured out a massive, game-killing loophole. The strategy was entirely negative. A team would go up 1-0 and then just endlessly boot the ball back to their goalkeeper. The keeper would casually pick it up, bounce it a few times, waste a massive chunk of the clock, and then punt it long. It was incredibly effective, for sure, but utterly boring to watch. The game was literally suffocating itself.
And you can see how the absurdity just kept escalating. Back in 1987, Graeme Souness, playing for Rangers with seconds left against Dynamo Kyiv, literally turned around and booted a 60-yard pass all the way back to his own goalkeeper just to kill the game. No way around it. That's just wild. Then you had that 1990 Ireland versus Egypt disaster we just talked about, and even going into the 1992 European Championship final, Peter Schmeichel and the Danish team successfully backpassed their way to glory. Defenders were literally lining up simply to feed the ball into Schmeichel's safe hands to run down the clock. The rule makers were watching this pedestrianized sport, and they knew they had to drop a bomb on the game.
And drop a bomb? They absolutely did. Which brings us to Section 2, the 1992 rule change.
The International Football Association Board, or IFAB, introduced Law 12, Section 2, which we all commonly know as the backpass rule. The definition is beautifully simple. Goalkeepers were prohibited from handling the ball when it was deliberately passed to them by a teammate's foot. Just like that, overnight, goalkeepers were completely stripped of their ultimate time-wasting tool. Suddenly, guys who had worn gloves their entire lives were forced to actually use their feet like outfield players.
And honestly, even the perpetrators knew it was necessary. Listen to this quote from the legendary Peter Schmeichel years later, sheepishly reflecting on Denmark's tactics at Euro '92. He asked, "How can you win football matches like that?" Even the absolute masters of this time-wasting tactic knew it was an ugly, cynical way to win. It wasn't football, it was just clock management.
But of course, you can't just change a fundamental rule of a global sport without a little bit of turbulence, right? Welcome to Section 3, chaos, comedy, and adaptation.
The immediate aftermath of the rule implementation in the summer of 1992 was just pure, unadulterated panic. Traditional defenders and goalkeepers were utterly terrified. We saw some absolutely hilarious and sometimes painful moments. You had defenders forgetting the rule, panicking, and blindly playing long balls back, causing spectacular own goals, giving us major flashbacks to Arsenal's Lee Dixon accidentally chipping David Seaman back in '91. Preseason games saw goalkeepers hesitating with the ball at their feet, which led to bad tackles and even broken legs, like what happened to Manchester City's Andy Dibble. They were totally out of their depth.
And as you'd expect, the resistance from the old guard was massive. Just listen to this incredibly dramatic complaint from ex-England goalkeeper Alan Hodgkinson. He said, "The new rule is making a mockery of my profession." Managers pushed back hard too. Leeds United boss Howard Wilkinson wrongly predicted it would just cause more long ball football. Instead, his Leeds team, who relied heavily on direct physical play, fell from being champions all the way down to 17th place in the inaugural Premier League campaign. The old ways were officially dying.
But the proof is right there in the numbers. Based on sports economics data from Robbie Butler, if we look at the goals scored across Europe's top leagues in 1992, right before the rule, versus 1993, right after, there is a massive, immediate spike. Take Italy's Serie A. historically known as a notoriously defensive league, they saw an incredible 163 more goals in just one single season after the rule change. The entertainment value skyrocketed exactly at the moment the newly formed Premier League was looking to market its product for television.
So the rule worked. But it didn't just add goals. It completely rewired the geometry of the pitch. Let's move to Section 4, Birth of the Sweeper Keeper. Let's break down how this tactical butterfly effect actually works in practice. Step 1, defenders lose their safety net. They can no longer easily pass back to the keeper's hands. Step 2, because the keeper is suddenly super awkward with their feet, attackers are incentivized to press higher up the pitch to force mistakes. Step 3, because those attackers are pressing high, the pitch elongates, pulling players out of deep defensive blocks and creating precious, highly contested space in the midfield. And finally, Step 4, with more space and players committed forward, fast-paced, direct counterattacks are born. The modern, high-pressing game was quite literally synthesized by taking away the keeper's hands.
The evolution of the position is night and day. Think about the traditional keeper. Isolated, guarding the net, strictly an outsider whose entire job was stopping shots and hoofing long punts into the stratosphere. Now contrast that with the new sweeper keeper. These are players who absolutely must have elite ball control. They initiate the attack and essentially act as the 11th outfield player. It completely aligns with Johan Cruyff's philosophy of possession football, finally integrating the goalkeeper into the overall team structure.
Contrast that earlier complaining quote from Alan Hodgkinson with this insight from modern German legend Philipp Lahm. He notes that the new rule made the game faster, more interesting, more offensive. Lahm correctly identifies that it redefined the goalkeeper's position and firmly integrated them into the actual rhythm of the football match.
And honestly, if we're talking about the absolute perfected product of this evolution, look no further than Manuel Neuer. Neuer didn't just adapt to the rule, he weaponized it. He combined world-class shot stopping with the footwork and distribution of a top-tier midfielder. He anticipated attacks, swept up behind high defensive lines, and used inch-perfect passes to launch devastating counters. He proved, once and for all, that a goalkeeper could be a true playmaker.
Which brings us nicely to our final section, Section 5, Modern Tactics and New Risks. Because as thrilling as the sweeper-keeper revolution has been, it has pushed the sport onto a very perilous tightrope today.
Take Andre Onana at Manchester United. Onana was specifically brought in to be the ultimate ball-playing keeper, the key to unlocking the manager's tactical setup. But his stats tell a wild story. He ranks lower in average pass length, meaning he plays short, risky passes. He is highly active outside his box, but when it goes wrong, well, as we've seen in high-profile errors against teams like Galatasaray or Bayern Munich, it looks absolutely catastrophic. The modern keeper walks a tightrope, where one misplaced short pass means an instant, unrecoverable goal for the opposition.
And that right there illustrates the terrifying beauty of the modern game. Consider a recent Premier League match, Brighton 2, Liverpool 2. Elite managers on both sides absolutely demanded their teams play out from the back, no matter what. The result? Liverpool's Alisson gets caught out when Virgil van Dijk's pass is intercepted. On the other end, Brighton's keeper, Verbruggen, attempts a pass under intense pressure that directly leads to a penalty. I mean, a coach from even 15 years ago would be bewildered watching defenders play risky square balls across their own penalty box.
Which leads us to this incredibly fascinating insight from Jorge Valdano. He points out a supreme irony in modern football, saying players these days are more prepared to take risks in their own box than their opponents. Think about what you should really take away from this explainer. A law introduced in 1992, specifically designed to stop defensive time wasting, has inadvertently turned the penalty box into the most high-risk, technically demanding area on the entire pitch. So I want to leave you with this final thought. We've seen how the back pass rule essentially saved football from itself, creating the fast-paced, high-pressing, beautiful game we watch today. But with elite keepers and defenders practically daring attackers to press them in their own 6-yard box, has the modern obsession with playing out from the back finally pushed the risk too far? Are we teetering on the edge of tactical madness? Think about that the next time you see a keeper casually dribbling past a striker. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking questions, and I'll see you next time.